Okay, I'd just like to bring a bit of an update. As a lot of people are aware, there's been a number of people come across into our fellowship from another fellowship, and a lot of people are a little bit puzzled by the fact that these people are welcomed into our assembly one-on-one, no difference. And the reason being is that there is exceedingly very little difference, and it all goes back to 1972, 50 years ago, when one of our founding pastors, Noel Hollins, decided to go in his own direction. We won't go into all the details of that. And that fellowship then grew into worldwide fellowship, and thousands of people over the 50 years have come to the Lord. Many died in the Lord. And from our perspective, even though we were isolated from them, that we never ever thought for 1 minute that their salvation was any better or any worse than ours. So we always felt that they were saved, which they are, as much as us. But anyhow, coming to recent times, the fellowship became more exclusive than ever, and some cracks started to appear, and it all started early this year, particularly in Bristol in England, where there were some people that were cast out of that particular fellowship. A lot of them had done nothing wrong at all, and they were handled quite brutally. And eventually, you might know this part, that Pastor Ben Smith in Vancouver in Canada, and Pastor Jeremy Archer in Milton Keynes in England, both of them wrote letters of protest about the way these people were treated. The end result, what happened is that they also then got cast out of that fellowship. And we ended up, and I dare say that's the point I want to make today, with a lot of people coming into our fellowship. And it's still happening right here and now, here, there and everywhere. So just to bring up to what's happened recently, I'll finish off there. So in Vancouver, we have Pastor Ben Smith. We don't often accept a pastor from another group straight into our fellowship as a pastor, but there was absolutely no reason on this occasion why Pastor Jeremy and Pastor Ben were not accepted in, and so on. But it was a little bit daunting for both sides, by the way, sort of looking at each other, summing each other up. I've actually been in contact with Pastor Ben for quite a few years, as we say, under the radar, and over the years sort of came to value each other, and not knowing that we would ever sort of come into the same fellowship. And Sister Yvonne over here, she doesn't like me embarrassing her, but she's hiding behind a piano accordion. She came into our fellowship right back in 1962, 63, when she was only 12, and so she was sort of like, to my brother Ben and myself, she was like a kid sister. And in 1964, she became our main music in our fellowship at Elizabeth in 1964, in early 1965, when Sister Janet Kuhlman had been our piano accordionist. When she found out that Yvonne had learned, she said, "I'm out, you're in." And so for another 6 years or so, Yvonne was our main music in Adelaide. In Elizabeth, actually, back in those days. But in 71, she moved to Geelong and married Pastor John Smith there, who's here today also. And as I said, that separation developed when Noel Hollins separated from the main body of the fellowship. So through her, I got to know Ben Smith, and so on. So there we are. We ended up with a whole assembly, nearly 50 people in Vancouver. Recently they had a camp, and quite a lot of our people went, and Pastor Paul went, and Pastor Michael Nagy and others, Pastor Darryl Williams, all went to that camp. And there's been a lot of overlapping. And the main thing we don't want is a fellowship within a fellowship. So even though it might start off that way a little bit, where they're more comfortable with people that have come out of their group, and slowly we're meshing the two fellowships together. So main reason I'm saying is we have here with us today, I counted up at least 9 people from the Geelong Assembly who were in the other fellowship and are now with us here. And just like you to realise, you look around, there's a face you don't know, maybe go up and say hello to and welcome them into our fellowship. We have been to Geelong, I think, 3 times in the last few months, mainly to do with a lot of people coming in from their assembly called the GRC, Geelong Revival Centre is their name, coming into what we call the TRF, the Revival, that word, fellowship. And in the last 3 weeks, we went back saw somebody, I won't go through any details, in Warrnambool. Then we went on to Geelong, with that group, by the way. We went on to Geelong, and again, there's quite a few more people. Now, the Geelong Assembly is just, the only word I can say is humming. Is that right, Brad? He's giving me the thumbs up. Brad, of course, is over there, but from our assembly here in Adelaide. And then we flew down to Hobart, had some great fellowship with Brother Ian Watt, and a little group there, and they're going really well. We went up to Launceston, where the assembly there has basically doubled through people coming from the local group, from the GRC. We'll just say, they haven't got a name actually, an overall name, the GRC in Launceston, and that assembly really has taken over. Brother Paul Robin, Sister Dulcie's son and Stephen's brother, is doing a really good job down there, and the two fellowships there are very much meshed together. So we then came back to Geelong over the last few days. Every day, I think we worked out, we're seeing about 7, or not that many, 4 or 5 people a day, all connected with this. So we arrived home on Thursday night absolutely exhausted, and then came down here yesterday. But so, all I'm saying is it's a very exciting time. Well over 100 people now worldwide that have come from that group into our group. It is a big thing. Pastor Paul will tell me off after this, because he said, don't make such a fuss of them. And so I'm already ready for that telling off. And wherever he is, he's here somewhere. Oh, he just went like that. So anyhow, as I said, look, there's other people here also from interstate, Brother Alan and so on, who gave his testimony. It's all very exciting, but if you're doing a bit of travelling, go to Geelong. By the way, Ballarat picked up a family. When it's a small assembly, a couple of people come in, it's a big event. And then you've heard Bendigo the same. There we are. And then we've got Geelong, of course. Sorry, who's that? Cooper Pedy. Has anybody heard of Cooper Pedy? You know, when the Bible said that the gospel would go to the ends of the earth, in the Greek it says Cooper Pedy. So anyhow, praise the Lord. So Geelong, Hobart, Launceston, Bendigo, Ballarat, they just had a rally in Victoria, organised beautifully by Pastor Darryl Williams, and there was, again, a lot of the interweaving of these folk into our fellowship. Brother Andy is here today. There, you can see him. And he gave a talk, you might, if you did watch it, which is great. So again, it's not only just coming together, we're getting ministry. Brother John Smith gave a great talk in Geelong a few weeks ago on a Wednesday, a fantastic talk on shepherding. And that was what was starting to lack in this other group, where they were not shepherding and looking after the sheep. So there you are. Make sure you meet them. Go on a holiday. Go anywhere you like. Cooper Pedy if you really have to. Or, sorry, I better get off.
Thanks, Pastor Jock. And it's funny, these guys told us how to behave ourselves back then, and now he apologised for misbehaving himself.